What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my trusty co-host Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, what's going on?
Gang, man, giving thanks out here. What's good?
So winter's coming for those of us in the Northeast, and potentially more people, as Game of Thrones, about hour, maybe 2 hours before recording this, just dropped. Simple tweet: winter is coming. Any thoughts? Any guesses what this is referring to?
Haven't heard that one before. Really unsure what that could mean. Brand new off the dome, I think. I don't know. Part of me thinks they're just like acknowledging that it's getting cold and it's easy content. Who the hell knows? Maybe it was a scheduled tweet.
Yeah. It probably was. That's kind of where I landed with it, but it's funny because some of the top comments are they're remaking season 8. It's official now. Like it's confirmed. Like don't get your hopes up on that.
The Snyder Cut people, same fans.
Give us the Snyder Cut of season 8 of Game of Thrones. That's what we really want.
The Cogman cut.
Absolutely. We got a lot to talk about today, though. We got a couple albums, couple of movies that you're going to be talking about. Unfortunately, I only was able to see one of them. And then we also are going to start off with the Grammys. Before we get into it, hit that subscribe button if you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, and go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod to follow the podcast any way that you want to listen to it. Grammys 2020 nominations dropped. Some really good in here and some really bad in here, and that's how I pretty much always feel about the Grammys. Well, what stood out to you? I'll let you kind of lead the conversation with this.
Yeah, I think what stands out off the top is the overwhelming acceptance of the youth with these nominations. Billie Eilish, great showing. YBN Cordae nominated for Best Rap Album. Lizzo, not super young, but brand new, 8 nominations. Lil Nas X, certainly over-nominated here, and part of that makes me think that the new leadership at the Recording Academy, Neil Portnow, is out. Deborah Duggan is in. Perhaps that has something to do with that. On the other side of that coin, established Grammy darling in the past, Taylor Swift, is not nominated for Album of the Year once again, despite I think most people expecting Lover, return to form, pretty universally acclaimed. We expected this to get back in that field, but it did not. Paul Simon, Frank Sinatra, and Stevie Wonder, the only people in the last 60 years to win 3 Album of the Years. Taylor has 2. She has to keep waiting. So that's what kind of stood out to me, just kind of the mix of people. And then there's still plenty of surprises and head scratchers, as you alluded to. But yeah, it's a mixed bag, like the Grammys like to do.
Yeah, if Lil Nas X's shine on this, bless you, was by far the most surprising to me, because just looking through Album of the Year, right? You got the established people in here. You got Bon Iver, you got Lizzo's not established, Vampire Weekend, even Lana Del Rey. Someone who's gotten a lot of acclaim. Ariana Grande's gotten some shine more recently, and then you got the young people: Billie Eilish, Lil Nas X, Lizzo, even her, who I know got some Grammy love last year as Best New Artist, but she feels very over nominated within all the categories. It feels like they almost tried too hard to create this mix. There's enough great music within the last year that obviously goes overlooked, and I think the rap category especially is a tough one, because there's so much, the amount of good rap out there right now is absurd, and the amount of people that actually get nominated is so small. It's maybe we could have taken a step back from giving Lil Nas X this one and maybe looked to a different person to get this Album of the Year nomination. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the rap category? Did you feel like that was representative? How were you feeling after reading through?
Yeah, it depends how you frame it. I think all the albums nominated for Best Rap Album are good and deserving albums. We have the Dreamville Project, the Meek Mill album, 21's album, Igor, of course, and YB and Cordae. All good albums we liked. Tough to really argue against any of those. And I think some of them actually really inspired. Obviously, 21 Savage, I'm happy he's there. He's not going to win. I think it's a lock for Tyler. which Igor's barely rap, but Tyler's been a rapper for so long, I don't give a shit. I would love to see him win. Meek Mill comeback album, nice. Dreamville, the studio bringing everyone together, doing those like crazy Dreamville sessions, really cool story. I like seeing that rewarded, even if I don't, run back most of that album that often. And Corday, of course, we've espoused praises about him being the new chosen one for a while. But if you're gonna claim one thing about 2019 hip hop, it's that it was dominated by the women. And Megan Thee Stallion has no nominations. And despite Neil Portnoy leaving, they still kind of shafted the women on here. I mean, Cardi B is nominated for Best Rap Song for her feature off Clout, off Offset's album. And I'm like, I mean, shit, of all the songs to pick, you could have picked like Money, Cardi's single at least, Clout. I mean, it's okay. But I wish Megan was here for either Reeler or the whole project. I don't know. But I'm not too mad about it. I mean, there's no Eminem album that has to steal a spot this time, and it's also a year where there's no Drake to nominate, no Kanye, he didn't make the window, no Kendrick, and no Solo Cole. So you get some other faces in there, which I think is cool. So yeah, I'll be happy for Tyler. I assume he's gonna win.
As you were talking, I was just kind of scrolling down through the different categories. Probably my favorite nomination, and just the one that I think encapsulates the problem with the Grammys, is Best Pop Vocal Album. This category, you got some really solid albums. When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? Billie Eilish, Thank You Next, Ariana Grande, Lover, Taylor Swift, Lion King. Okay, it's Beyonce. Okay, I get it. Number 6 collaborations project.
Garbage.
Yeah, go back to our review of that because man, the fact that this got nominated for a Grammy, especially when there's been so much good pop this year too. I mean, how, like, I don't know if Lana got nominated somewhere else. Maybe she's an indie. I didn't actually check there.
No,
but like,
she got Album of the Year. So
like, how do you not put her back in this category over Ed Sheeran? It's just ridiculous.
Or Charlie XCX.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or BTS.
Yeah, BTS not getting love is absurd.
Yeah, that's strange, really. I mean, but it's like Ed Sheeran and Beyonce, they are still on the Grammy good side, unlike Taylor Swift, apparently. So it's kind of weird. Honestly, best rock song, best rock song is actually, I think, a really funny mix of rock. Tool, 1975, Vampire Weekend, Brittany Howard, Gary Clark Jr. Honestly, if you're gonna grab a grab bag of what is rock these days, that's pretty close.
Not bad. Although the 1975, my feelings on them. But the fact that it's this song and not Love It If We Made It or something like that is a bit surprising that they nominated this one over.
Oh wait, shit.
When
did that come out?
Yeah, and it's also interesting how Vampire Weekend has Best Rock Album, or Best Alternative Music Album, but then gets nominated for Best Rock Song and then Album of the Year. They're in all these different categories. Yeah. So I think that kind of speaks to how rock, even the albums that are most looked at, are not really true rock albums anymore.
Yeah, I think the Best Alternative Music, you have Vampire Weekend, Bon Iver again, as you expect, James Blake, Tom York, and then Big Thief. Yeah. I think that's actually pretty solid. I mean,
yeah, really solid.
Big Thief is either a love it or hate it band, but they're definitely a big act in that scene. So I think that's fair. I think Best New Artist is also pretty impressive, just because I think there's a lot of obvious choices there, right? Was it Lizzo, Billie, Maggie Rogers, Rosalia, and then some other like really inspired below the belt band choices. So that's actually a nice field. Notably, no Megan again, no DaBaby. DaBaby does have some other nominations for song and stuff, but yeah. Again, I was not really offended by much, but I think the biggest surprise ultimately was Taylor not getting back into Album of the Year.
Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest surprise for a lot of people, and probably Lil Nas X's Love It as well, I think. Although he won a couple of awards last night at the American Music Awards.
Right.
So he might actually. I don't know. I don't know what the crossover is for this. I don't really pay attention. So.
Also, I mean, we knew this was coming. We knew Ariana nominated Seven Rings. That was the song she put forward for Song of the Year and Record of the Year and all that, which is just strange to me because it's not the best song on the album. Obviously, Thank You Nextel track's I think a much more obvious choice, but also like 90% of that song's cut goes to Rodgers and Hammerstein because of the interpolation stuff. It's like I feel like it's just not the best like example of this is who Ariana was this past year. You know, I just find that strange. Also, Lizzo, notably, if you look at the nominations, the deluxe edition of "Cause I Love You" is the one that was nominated. That's notable because Truth Hurts was added to this album, and later Good as Hell was added to the super deluxe of this album. These are songs that came out 2 and 3 years ago, and those are the two biggest songs she had this year. So it's kind of strange that, and then Truth Hurts itself is nominated in several categories.
Yet Lizzo's really a new artist, right?
Right, but even Truth Hurts literally came out in 2017.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, she's really new, quote unquote. It's like who was it that won like 2 years? Was it 2 years ago? I forgot who like the winner was, but they had been around for like a while.
Yeah, like, that happens pretty often. And like again, no problem with nominating that Lizzo album, but I do find it's kind of category fraudish to find a way to reward the songs that are actually old. You mentioned "Love It If We Made It" with 1975. That song came out in July, so you just can't nominate this time,
right?
You know. Also, Her. We remarked that we were surprised about the nomination she got last time. Now that album that's nominated is really just the combination of those two EPs that have come out, and that first EP was nominated the last Grammys. So how it's like you're half of this album already was rewarded, and that's like a re-release. It's just strange. Does Her have nudes on someone in the industry? Like, what's going on here? I'm just confused.
I feel like this always happens though, is that the Grammy nominators fall in love with certain artists, and then those artists just get continuously nominated. You know,
right?
I don't know. It's frustrating, I guess. It kind of brings me back to, I guess, my final point on all this is I was just kind of left feeling like, who gives a fuck about the Grammys, man? I mean, think about all the albums we review. And our playlist reflects like we are going through quite a bit of music, and maybe 10% of that, 15% of that is actually like presented at the Grammy Awards. Like, music is so much deeper and probably the least represented by its award shows.
We reviewed precisely 0 of the best rock albums nominated.
Is that true?
0. The Cranberries one, Cage the Elephant. We didn't talk about any of those.
Oh, geez. I didn't.
3 of the 5 alternatives, though.
Okay, well, take that.
In terms of like the snubs that have been going around, I think Carly Rae Jepsen, I'm not surprised, but that's a really good album. Maren Morris, I was surprised they didn't get more country love. Like the country awards, you know, for the Grammys, they have no qualms about going for country pop and stuff that's barely traditional country. So I thought Maren Morris was kind of a shoe in there. A little surprising. Halsey, make a big stink, her and her fans. We do not give a shit, to be honest. I do care about Solange though. That does not make sense to me because she got nominated last time. So it's not like she's like an unknown. And this was a great record, and it's just not
great
here.
Record.
That's a shock.
Yeah. So if you want to care about an award, or I guess recognition of an album, you should be getting excited for our best of list, which should be rolling out in the next couple of weeks. So
and our decade talk, so much decade.
But that means there's a lot more time to talk about music, and we're going to talk about some more now. Tinashe dropping her third album, I guess technically, Songs for You.
Right. So when we talked about Joyride last year, we were calling it her second album. She clarified this year that she actually viewed it as her third album because Night Ride that had come out. The label didn't call it an album, but it was an album to her. So this is, in Tinashe's mind, her fourth album. Right. Confusing.
Well, we'll say fourth album then, because we respect the queen, especially when you put out something that I think is as experimental, I guess I would say, in terms of her sound, and also appears to be a leveling up similar to couple other artists we've talked about recently who we feel have leveled up a bit, like Lana Del Rey, and
Mm.
who we talked about someone, I think it was like a week or two ago. We felt, oh no, it was FKA Twigs. We also
Yep.
felt leveled up a bit on this
Absolutely.
most recent album. And Tinashe really seems to be, I think, finding her groove. And this is her first independent record.
Mhm.
So, you just talked about some of the issues she had with her second and third albums, and how they were released, and singles kept coming out and the album just kept getting pushed back and back. And she finally got out of her RCA deal and was independent. I think that really gave her the freedom to create a record like this, which I think is actually really, really good. Give me just some general thoughts about songs for you, then we'll start digging in a little deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is clearly Tinashe's best work and a real obvious champion for creative control and what that means to artists, because she was someone who truly got fucked by the studio system the past almost 5 years, 4.5 years. And Joyride, now that we reviewed, when it finally came out, I still liked a lot about it. But again, RCA just fumbled the ball with that. And none of those songs, there were some really good tracks on that album. They didn't go anywhere, And now, I mean, she's independent, but she is managed by Rock Nation now. And I know she has distribution on this album. So I'm hoping this can just do a little better, just try and make some kind of inroad, just because, again, there's some really good tracks on here. And we've known how talented Tinashe has been this whole time. She's kind of like the triple threat with the dancing and the vocal range, and just seems like a really creative person. So, I was really, really pleased with this. And especially because I didn't really know it was coming until a few weeks ago. So caught me by surprise, but I'm happy with this. And actually, I think I want to keep digging in because I really like just about everything I heard.
Yeah, I didn't think there was really a bad track on here, and I was most impressed with was how she was able to jump between genres. I guess at the heart of it, it's R&B, but it really uses like trap pop. It has some West Coast hip hop sounds in here, even some like acoustic and rock, elements into it, but also just kind of create these songs that have really catchy hooks to them. And it seems like she really got to shine through her songwriting as well as her like crafting of music. A couple of my favorite tracks, Stormy Weather and So Much Better, had a little bit more of the rock elements onto it. But then you had her using orchestras for parts of songs, and kind of flourishing some of those deeper string family instruments to create some ambiance into some of her songs. So it's a really impressive fourth album, and I think you can really say probably like first time she's gotten to like really let loose with her own style, which is cool. What songs were really standing out to you?
Yeah, I like those ones you mentioned. I think honestly, those first 4 or 5 tracks, Feelings, Life Too Short, Hopscotch, Stormy Weather, you get a lot real quick. And you kind of get like, this is going to be more genre bending and really bounce around. And her vocal delivery is going to change. The production's going to change very dramatically. And it's not going to feel jumbled or incohesive because Tinashe is able to adapt the whole time. Nothing really feels forced. I immediately was drawn to Hopscotch, the early radio voiceover in the beginning, shades of Vince Staples' FM, of course. That's just a really fun song. That's definitely more trap based, but that's fun because again, she can really flow on that kind of stuff. I'd love to hear her do some like stuff with DJ Mustard. I feel like that's a match, or even some like Pilo Bay Area beats or something. That'd be cool.
That really interesting.
Yeah, and then you mentioned So Much Better with G-Eazy. Again, another Bay guy. That'd be actually a cool combo, I think. And that song was just funny to me because G-Eazy's just straight up explicitly being like, yo, about that fucking we've been doing. What's good? And I feel like that G-Eazy's kind of just been devolving post Halsey and just giving less and less fucks since coming out in his music. I thought that was really amusing because Tinashe actually had mentioned, I remember seeing this on Hot 97, how she was she always thought G-Eazy was attractive. So I wonder if this has finally happened. That's interesting to me. I also like Link Up. I thought Link Up was pretty fun as well. But I mean, like I said, there's a lot here. I still really want to keep digging in. But I was very happy with this.
Yeah, definitely. I found myself really enjoying the end of the album when I felt like she was really kind of tying in the themes pretty succinctly about how, the title for this album is Songs for You. Um, and she really was kind of driving home that, she was making this like kind of like love baby making type album, or at least with these themes and I thought that really wrapped up the album quite well. And I think that this kind of just shows that Tinashe has a lot more to offer, and I think that she's only good things to come. I think for her, I'm glad she's independent now. An artist that I don't think we are too surprised at the quality of their work now. Beck, dropping his most recent album, Hyperspace, 14th, which is crazy. We go from 4 to 14th. And Beck, I mean, we've reviewed what, one of his albums now, I think, on here.
The 2017 one. What's it called? Colors.
Yeah, Colors. Yep, yeah. We did Colors last year. Before that, Morning Phase, Grammy album of the year.
That's right.
Very acoustic, very folky singer-songwritery, and then Colors, which is it feels like a bit of a move away from that softer sound into a more pop embrace, at least I think Beck style, but more just like fun. And then this album seems like Hyperspace seems like a good mesh of those two things. I think there's some really strong songwriting within this album, but it kind of meshes that like poppiness and that energy of Colors with, I think, the songwriting and the depth of Morning Phase, which I think made this a really fun listen. I know you didn't get a chance to get to it, but if you haven't had a chance to, I really would recommend starting with a song like Chemical, which I think kind of brings in this nice like trancey, spacey type feel that he's obviously going for with Hyperspace as a title, but really does bring in like the craftiness and the genius of Beck really well. But really, there's not a bad song throughout. Pretty much the quality you expect from Beck. So check out Hyperspace. You think you'll give it a listen eventually?
Yeah, I've always found him a very accessible artist. You can kind of just, I mean, again, 14 albums. It's pretty daunting to try and catch up on Beck. But I mean, I felt this way with Colors, at least, that you can kind of just listen to Beck and get the idea and then dig deeper if you want to, because he is obviously a really talented songwriter. So yeah, I do want to listen to it. He is an important figure in the singer-songwriter field, obviously. The Grammys know all about that.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't get a nomination next year for this album. It's quality, and like you said, the Grammys love him. But why don't we move on to maybe an album I think we're both a little more interested to talk about? Coldplay's Everyday Life. Coldplay, man, interesting, because when they released their last album in 2017, and I'm blanking on the name of it. Give me 1 second to find it in my notes here.
2017?
Head Full of Dreams, sorry. 2017's Head Full of Dreams. It kind of seemed like Coldplay might either be moving towards a hiatus, or potentially maybe even kind of coming to the end as a band. They did like this whole documentary about their career as a band. They released this live album that they recorded, and all these on their big world tour along with the album. And then kind of out of the blue, about like a month or two ago, they started dropping some singles and alluding that there's a new album on the way, and they're even calling this a double album. And I think interest in Coldplay had been waning a bit. They started off their careers as the Fix You guys, the guys who make these really kind of like sappy but still comforting songs that are these rock ballads, but they don't really challenge you, and they're a pretty safe band, I think, for the most part. And they kind of wanted to just become more and more pop and more safe, it felt like, until every teardrop is a waterfall feels like the perfect metaphor, where it just is like I roll my eyes every time I read the titles because it just feels so ridiculous. And
Textbook arena rock.
Right. And then they drop this album, Everyday Life, and it feels like a bit of a shift for the band. And it's a shift in a direction more towards, I think, a musical and singer-songwriter stripped back side of the band, which is really interesting. But I'm not sure if it all landed for me. I'm wondering how you felt knowing that, one, you like rock that goes hard, and this is certainly not that. But knowing that, Coldplay, this is a shift for them as a band in general too. Like, how did you feel about this album?
Yeah, I do respect the willingness to change and evolve as an act, and I think it's at least a more interesting pivot than just becoming a more homogeneous pop like a lot of these big bands have gone, at least this decade. But I think Coldplay, because they're much older, more established act, and clearly seem to have some integrity in what they believe and care about as they've grown wealthy and old. I think that's commendable. But yeah, I mean, the first note I wrote down was Chris Martin got woke, dog, and
yeah,
hearing him talk about these things, it does sound like he really cares, and following Radiohead's footsteps in terms of really caring about like sustainable, environmentally conscious touring, which is not super easy when you're an arena band. Looking no further than U2 when they had that big claw set that required like hundreds of trucks and was basically a moon landing every time they moved the set. It is, I think, an important undertaking because this is something that really has real impact. And I really respect that, and I'm happy to hear that from someone that famous. But yeah, it's still soft, and that's not the rock I enjoy. So this, I mean, what's it? Was it the third track? That one where there's the voiceover from the police officer giving attitude. And I'm like, okay, I get what you're going for. Then later on, I forgot what song it was, but there's talks about guns, and clearly it's a gun control message. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I respect all of this, but and honestly, I don't think it's that offensive to Coldplay fans because, as we've been saying, Coldplay is not. They've always kind of been sappy, so I don't think this whole like adding these songs into their sets when they eventually do perform or tour again is not going to feel offensive or out of left field when those songs come on, like some other bands like Fifth Album's tracks might, like the Arctic Monkeys last album, the Tranquility Hotel Base Casino, an album people like, but definitely a lot different than their past stuff. And you notice when they start playing those new tracks, right? I don't think that's the case at all. This still kind of fits in, but yeah, it's still Coldplay. Like, and I think what's important to remember about Coldplay is that when they did the Super Bowl, no one remembered they did it. They remembered Bruno Mars and Beyonce.
That's a great point. Yeah. So some of the songs you're talking about, "Trouble in Town," which also leads into another song I really liked off the album, "Broken," with the capital E. Not sure what what's going on there, but okay. I thought those are two really good tracks. Like you said, it kind of bringing in the recording of the racial profiling incident in Philadelphia, kind of added to the track and creates this, makes you think, tries to make you woke a bit. But the song that I think is at, obviously the center of this and that I think will fit best into their live act is Arabesque. It's one of the singles. It's a swing song that actually was one of the last cuts from Viva La Vida, or Viva, whatever it is, and all her friends.
Yeah, you got it.
And I think that makes a lot of sense because it's probably the song that's most appealing. I think the most like fun and like you kind of want to move to it. And it comes from a totally different time of their career before they moved into this generic poppiness. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I also thought "Orphans," another song that's a little bit more old school Coldplay, I think could fit in well to their live songs. Overall, I think it's an interesting listen, and it was pretty quick, which is also, for 16 songs and Coldplay calling this a double album, it's shorter than a lot of their other longer albums. So I think these like 2-3 minute tracks actually go by pretty quickly.
Yeah. Was it Sunrise and Sunset are the two sides?
Yeah.
I think conceptually that's actually, it does seem to work. And it's funny because like calling something a double album in 2019 means little to most people, beyond, oh, it's just a long one, like it doesn't have an impact anymore because no one actually has the double discs. So
Mm-hmm.
it seems like they actually were able to execute. So that's cool. Yeah.
And if you want to check out any of the songs we've talked about today or any of the artists, check out our Nowstalgia best 2019 list. It is up to date on Spotify. 60 songs on there. So, quite a bit to dig into. And now, Dave, I'm going to kind of give you the floor here because we wanted to talk Knives Out. And I had a ticket for Friday night, early screening, and they didn't download the movie onto the projector, which not great. It's not what you want when you go to see a movie, Dave. It turns out you need to have the movie downloaded onto the projector to watch it. So
who would have thought?
Yeah, didn't get to see it, but you said you did see it. Tell me your thoughts.
I did. Yeah, sold out theater. As you can imagine, they did those advanced screenings Friday and Saturday night in like I think it was 800 or 900 theaters across the country. So a lot of people got to see it a few days early. I believe it's opening Wednesday wide. The early Thanksgiving window. So everyone's going to see it shortly. But that's we were excited to seize the opportunity, given there's a lot of stuff coming in the pipe. And Knives Out, the new movie from Rian Johnson, his first since Star Wars: The Last Jedi, which we do not need to litigate here, but our thoughts are around.
It's a good movie.
And everyone else's thoughts are also around. This movie debuted at TIFF and to a rapturous acclaim. And I think that really got the hype going because we knew that this was some kind of murder mystery premise inspired by Agatha Christie with a stacked cast.
Yep.
And then people saw the movie and they're like, that is all correct and it's all amazing. And I've seen the movie and I do agree. Not going to spoil anything right now. Pat will be chiming in next week when he gets to see it. Again, we're very annoyed.
And I'm seeing it. Unlike Parasite, I'm seeing it.
Yeah, so I mean, that cast, you look at the poster, and I'll just go through the premise along with that. So Richard Plummer, the GOAT himself, plays this wealthy, famous author, publishing baron guy. And his death is the central mystery of the movie. Everyone's gathered in the same location by the investigators, and they want to determine how he died. Classic murder mystery setup. And Daniel Craig is a private investigator from the South, hired. Daniel Craig doing a hilarious Southern accent reminiscent of Logan Lucky. He's awesome in it. Lakeith Stanfield's the lead police officer. And then Plummer, his three children his two kids are Jamie Lee Curtis, whose husband is Don Johnson, and then their son is Chris Evans, who plays like the black sheep of the family. Plummer's other son is Michael Shannon, who has a young son who is kind of a right-wing Jacob Wool, like dipshit type. And then Toni Collette plays Plummer's daughter-in-law, who her partner's no longer there. And then Anda Artemis plays Plummer's live-in nurse, again, a very old man. And then Edie Patterson plays the housekeeper for this nice, lavish estate in the Boston area. They did shoot this in Boston, and it's a really cool house, lots of nifty things, and it's again an awesome setting for this kind of premise. And as you can imagine, this cast is all A-list, all hitters, and they're all great. And I mean, the thing that's so impressive about this movie is, having the cast is easy to point to, but the editing in this movie is so precise, especially once they start telling the story, where Lakeith and Craig are, just getting everyone's backstory about the night Plummer dies, and the way they cut from character to character, Don Johnson to Curtis to Shannon, whoever, to Collette, and they're just getting the alibi, and like the information is being told to the audience in a nonstop fashion, but we're actually changing who's delivering that to us, and the pace never stops because they just switch it, and like the flow of everything is so precise. It's awesome. I think this script is just incredibly impressive, super tight, and I think it's definitely best original screenplay worthy, and I think that's a very, very good chance of happening. Rian Johnson, of course, liked for his writing, known that for a long time, ever since Brick, but this is really impressive, and again, this is not based off an Agatha Christie work. This is completely original and probably one of the best original murder mysteries in many, many years. And I was also surprised at how forthcoming information is to the audience about the events that take place and the way things are told to the audience. It's a much faster method than I anticipated, and it's leaves so much more movie runtime. I'm like, wait a minute, we know this already, and there's like an hour and 15 left. Holy shit! And I love the way it ends. I think it's just has an amazing energy that really doesn't stop the whole time. So it's Knives Out is living up to the hype. So please see this movie.
I'm definitely gonna see it, man. I was so bummed when the person came in and told me, but I got 2 free tickets to use, so which is always like a nice little I don't know, bonus, I guess. And I definitely will see it. But man, I'm bummed. This cast and the poster is so awesome too, and they gave it out. And I've just been like, I just had like have it sitting on like a chair in my home. I just keep looking at it like it's like taunting me. So I gotta see it. Can't wait. Another movie I'm doubting I'll get to it is Waves. Tell me about Waves, because I'm interested, but I'm not 100% sold.
Yeah, man. So Waves is wild. Let's just say that. This is an A24 film from Trey Edward Schultz. He wrote and directed it. Trey Edward Schultz is only 31 years old. Yeah, this is his third movie, third with A24. Most recently came out with It Comes at Night in 2017, a notable entry in that elevated, non-traditional horror genre. That's definitely a big wave right now. And Waves debuted at Telluride to big fanfare, and then once it came out at TIFF later, some more mixed reviews came in. Ultimately, it's still sitting at 88% Rotten Tomatoes. And I think it's a movie that, whether you like it or you don't, it engenders a strong reaction in the audience, in the viewer. And that is not a common thing. And I think that's really important. And for me, I think the movie largely really worked for me. It's honestly told in a 2-act structure, 2 very distinct halves to the movie. And ultimately, your opinion of the movie probably changes on which half you liked more. I'm not going to say really anything else, but that's you can figure that out once you watch it. And the premise is kind of simple. It's just about this black family in Florida, and a traumatic event happens, and things are kind of turned upside down. And, it's Kelvin Harrison Jr. plays Tyler, who's a high school senior wrestling star. His girlfriend's played by Alexa Demi, who we last saw in Euphoria, of course. She was definitely one of the big breakouts there. And then Tyler's dad is played by Sterling K. Brown. His mom is played by Renee Goldsberry, famous for being the first Angelica Schuyler in Hamilton. And then Kelvin's sister is played by Taylor Russell, who just got a Gotham Award nomination for Best Breakthrough Actor and a Indie Spirit Award for Best Supporting Actress. And then Lucas Hedges also shows up because this is an A24 movie, and you need to have a white guy sometimes. So he's here, and he's good because that's what Lucas Hedges does. He's a good actor. But
Lucas Hedges confirmed good. Hot takes here on the Nowstalgia podcast.
But so again, I'm not going to spoil what happens in Waves, and I would recommend you don't need to watch the trailer. You don't need to read anything about the plot. I didn't really know much, and I thought that was a big benefit, so I wouldn't do that. But I will tell you about the movie making, which I think is very impressive, or at least stands out. Trey Edward Schultz, like I said, his hands are all over this. He also co-edited it. He said he made this movie, and I think it was like a 35-day shoot. And in that shoot, 35 days, he went to like 50 different locations. He had shot listed this whole movie. And he said he came up with about 4 hours worth of material, and he had to really cut this down. And then once he did his cut, he had like 3.5 hours that he needed people to help him cut. And the filmmaking is really striking for a lot of obvious reasons that you're probably familiar with if you've seen A24 movies. First of all, we're in Florida. There's a scene in the water where the camera's in the water, very reminiscent of Moonlight, another A24 film. There's a lot of thematic similarities to Moonlight in this movie. Lots of close-ups of people's heads, like shoulder high, lots of close-up scenes. Overall, the movie has tons of music. There's very little non-dialogue scenes that aren't filled with some kind of sound. And that music is also noteworthy because it's all this A-list stuff. And you think A24 definitely helped pull this through, but There's Kendrick drops, Kanye West, Frank Ocean, Cudi, Tyler, Animal Collective, Radiohead, tons of really intentional musical drops conveying parts of the plot or feeling in the characters' heads. And it might be a little on the nose for some people because sometimes it's literally the lyrics of those famous songs literally enunciating what's actually being shown on screen. So that might be a little on the nose for some people, but I think it's really cool because again, the movie really doesn't stop with the senses. And again, like the colors and the beautiful shots, the A24 of it all is really obvious. But then you have all this very intentional music drops, and at worst, it's just really showy. And I think that's just enjoyable to watch. Usually, the melodrama of it all, which again I'm not going to really get into, but that requires more examination. I think some people have had issue with it. You can read some of those reviews, but it's I think Waves is definitely a movie I would recommend everybody watch just to again you will have a visceral reaction to this. This does really inspire feeling, and I think the first half was the act I preferred, and I do have it at 10 right now on my list, despite noticing some of the flaws. So I think again it's just a really sensational movie, and it's interesting. It was only in 21 theaters this past week, only grossed 168K. Sterling K. Brown did not get nominated at the Indie Spirit Awards, so I think that Best Supporting Actor nomination that he had a chance for is probably not going to happen. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people are going to see this, but I'd recommend they do.
I mean, it sounds really good, and any movie that is at worst showy and then has songs from all those artists I like, I'll probably enjoy it. So I think you sold me. I'm willing to check it out. I was able to check out A Wonderful Day in the Neighborhood. Tom Hanks. Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. It's wonderful as well. And Tom Hanks, man. I mean, we've seen all the trailers leading up to this. We've seen, Tom Hanks and the Oscar buzz around this performance, and it's been at some festivals, gotten some really good feedback. But I was a little surprised because I was like, I don't know how compelling is the main character. But then when you get in and you really start watching this movie, and I didn't do any background going into it, I wanted to kind of go in blind, finding out that it's based on this article, I believe it was a 1998 article, profiling Mr. Rogers. It actually turned out to be more about the author of the article and the transformation he had with his friendship with Mr. Rogers. It made a lot more sense because I think this movie is really good, but I think it's really good because Matthew Rhys and Tom Hanks are really good in this movie. How did you feel about A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood?
Yeah, I agree. I think A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is good because it's not actually really about Fred Rogers. If you want to get that, you can go watch Won't You Be My Neighbor, the documentary from last year that actually a lot of people saw. Grossed like over $10 million at the box office. But yeah, this is a little different. And it's loosely based off that Tom Junot 1998 Esquire article, but they did a lot of creative liberties with the Lloyd Vogel character that Matthew Rhys plays. And yeah, it's funny because when this ended, I did not have like an amazing like warm reaction to the movie. I didn't like fall in love with it or anything, but I was like, oh yeah, that was good. I see what you guys did there. I saw the structural choices you made. I understand these. I respect these choices. Yeah, I didn't love it that much, but Hanks is awesome, and I'm a big Matthew Rhys fan. I don't know. I just don't think I connected with the family drama that is kind of essential to the whole story. Of course, Vogel's issues, but it's still quite good. Marielle Heller, she did Can You Ever Forgive Me last year, and Melissa McCarthy, a movie I liked a lot. I like that one more than this, but I think this is I think what I think this makes this a little more special is how they structure this in like the framing of one episode of Mr. Rogers' show, and those visual cues are obviously very obvious. But I think that was a really cool way to tell the story. But what was your favorite part about it?
I really like the performances. Rhys, Hanks is the one that gets all the shine. Certainly as Mr. Rogers, he's probably got the meteor. I don't know about meteor. He just has the more lauded figure. but Matthew Rhys and this like broken guy who has all this like family trauma and things that he's working through, or maybe not working through at the time, kind of using his work um, as this vehicle to avoid addressing his own issues and to escape the parts about his life he doesn't feel totally great about, or confident about. I thought really effectively set up the effect and the impact that Mr. Rogers had on people, and really what the point of the movie was. Talking about this person who, as Matthew Rhys' character describes him, a modern day saint, in a lot of ways. I also think what it did really well is it used Mr. Rogers' personality, which is very soft, very warm. And it gives that warm feeling, like you talked about. The framing of the show was already in this like these figurines and these model cities, for like the intercut parts, like the transitioning from one scene to another type scenes. So it kind of puts you or anyone that watched Mr. Rogers back into this like, oh, I'm watching another episode of Mr. Rogers. But then it kind of gives a lot of space, like in the scenes where Hanks and Rhys are talking about their issues. Rhys opening up to Mr. Rogers about pain with his father and things like that. They really let those moments sit, and they really chew on those a little bit. And I think that really allows the viewer to have their own internal dialogue, their own internal experience as Rhys is as the main character, is kind of like the avatar for that. And there's that scene near the end. I can't recall quite exactly like how it went down, but I think where they're in the diner, right? And Mr. Rogers is asking the writer to do an exercise with him and think about all the people that got you here and whatnot. And it really lets you chew on that moment. And as the viewer, I mean, I know in my theater there was only a couple people, but I think that I heard a couple sniffles, people really, I think, reflecting in that moment. And it challenges you to really step into the movie with Mr. Rogers in that moment. It's like a bit surreal. The people in the diner kind of are also going through that moment, and it goes right back to normal once he's done. But I think that's a really effective scene to not only portray what the movie is going for, but then allow the viewer, the audience, to really feel, I think, what that impact of being with Mr. Rogers was like. How did you feel about that scene, though? I think I've heard some mixed reviews.
Yeah, I like that scene. That's good. Yeah. You notice the people in the diner also be quiet, and then like you get it's a fourth wall break, and didn't really expect it, so that was cool. I think the things that I felt were less special was a lot of stuff between Rhys and Chris Cooper, his estranged dad.
Yeah. Plays a good scumbag, Chris Cooper.
Yeah, and I like Chris Cooper a lot. He's obviously awesome, but I wanted more of the convos between Vogel and Rogers, because when Fred would like deconstruct Lloyd really kindly, softly, the way he would twist questions and evade things and ask his own, like it really captured that like Rogers ethos in an important way. Yet you never end up hearing Lloyd getting his questions answered. The movie's ultimately about Lloyd, and again, like structurally, I like that. I just kind of wish we could have got a little bit more of that twist. But ultimately, it's it's just a really sweet movie with a pretty easy to grasp message. So it's hard to be too critical, I think, of the end result.
So, this is an interesting movie, right? Because there's been a lot of award nomination buzz around this. And I think it's a really good movie. But we've also seen a lot of really good movies this year. You more than me at this point. Do you think that this is worthy of nominations for Best Picture, maybe acting nominations?
I don't think Best Picture is going to happen, to be honest. I think this is not going to get too many. I think the leading nomination would be a supporting actor for Tom Hanks. But that also is by no means a lock because, as you've said, that is a stacked field of things we've seen. Not much beyond Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but we know we have Anthony Hopkins coming, The Two Popes, John Lithgow in Bombshell, Pacino and Pesci in Irishman, Jamie Foxx in Just Mercy, as well as Chalamet in Little Women. So that's a lot. And Hanks won 2 Best Actors basically in a row and hasn't been really nominated at all in the past few years. Nothing for Sully or Captain Phillips, you know. He's almost like the guy version of Meryl Streep in that sense.
Yeah.
Where we've moved past Hanks in a certain sense to award other people. So then again, this movie isn't a biopic, but it's a biopic-y-esque performance. And that's obviously award bait in and of itself. I don't think he has any chance to win, but I wouldn't be shocked, especially like I said before with Waves. I think Sterling K. Brown is probably going to slip out of the field. So he's probably a safe choice that people will check, you know, for like, oh, here's my 4th pick, my 5th pick. Yeah, Hanks. Hanks was really good as Mr. Rogers. Sure. But yeah, I don't think Best Picture is going to happen, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think Best Picture is either. I could see Hanks getting the nomination just as like a legacy one, but he said that I don't think Munson are going to be like happy about who got left off. You know, it's just too much. But I think that this is a nice movie, and it kind of goes into Hanks's filmography as I think probably one of his strongest just like embodiments of a character. You know, Captain Phillips, he also is pretty good, especially in the trauma of the character. But yeah, I wanted to follow up with you and see like Hanks. Obviously, he's a legend. He hasn't been nominated in a while. What is your favorite Hanks performance, though?
I was thinking about this before, and I don't think I ever came up with anything to myself.
It's tough.
Not Forrest Gump. Shit. I really like Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, he's really good in that.
I don't think anyone would say that's his best one, but I really enjoy that. No, but a good choice. There's a lot of good choices. You said Big, not for me, but Sleepless in Seattle, not for me, but Captain Phillips and Sully, no. Yeah, he's always good. To be honest, Da Vinci Code isn't any good. Angel Demons isn't any good. I always really liked those movies, though. I thought they were really interesting galaxy brain premises from Dan Brown. So I kind of liked him as Robert Langdon, even though those aren't good movies.
Yo, he actually as Langdon is pretty good. I wouldn't knock you too much for that one, especially I think the earlier in that trilogy it is, the better, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'd probably go Saving Private Ryan for my favorite performance. And it's hard to like pick a vocal performance, but he is really good as Woody in Toy Story. Just
I agree,
constantly killing it every time he's in that role. So yeah, Hanks, man. I mean, it's too bad he probably won't get the nom, or he probably won't win for this because I think he's really good, or might not even get the nom. But still, a good feather to put in his filmography. Any last thoughts on A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood?
I mean, I think it was at $13 million. Did pretty solid for the scale of this movie. I think it's only like a $25 million budget. So this would be a nice little hefty W for the studio. And Marielle Heller, this is 2 really quick in a row. One of the more interesting and prolific female directors right now, which again certainly speaks to the how much more work needs to be done. That simply by releasing movies frequently, like she does and Greta Gerwig does, they just almost by default become the top of their class at the moment. Mm-hmm. But she's a really interesting filmmaker, and I'm really curious to see what she does next.
Absolutely. I think that's probably going to do it for us this week. But you already kind of mentioned we have a lot to be looking forward to. What should the people be watching, Dave?
The Irishman is out on Netflix on Wednesday. Don't need to say why you gotta watch that. Just watch that, obviously. The Report is also out on Amazon Prime on the 29th. And then in theaters, you have Queen and Slim going live with Daniel Kaluuya and Dark Waters, the new Todd Haynes movie with Mark Ruffalo. Apparently, it's an excellent entry in the They Knew canon from Ruffalo, which is exciting. Me and you are hoping to also talk about
They
Honey Boy,
knew Tommy.
the Shia LaBeouf movie.
Uh-huh.
We do know that's good, so we're excited to see that. And yeah, I don't think anyone's dropping any music of note around Thanksgiving, which makes sense. But that's plenty of movies, and we'll find some other stuff as we usually do.
Absolutely. So hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Go to our SoundCloud page, soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod. And follow us on Twitter at NostalgiaPod as well. We appreciate you. Have a great Thanksgiving. Peace out.